Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Governor Cooper proclaimed September 15th to October 15th, 2022 as Hispanic Heritage Month. Hispanic Heritage Month, established nationally in 1988 by Public Law 100-402, honors the culture, history, and achievements of Hispanic people, recognizing Latinos, Latinx, Hispanics, and Latin American people in the United States for their many contributions to American society. Our guest speaker is Larissa Garzon, Director, North Carolina and Mid-South Operations at Hispanic Federation. She will explore Hispanic Federation and how they work to make a positive difference for North Carolina's Hispanic workers and residents. Before we go further into today's program, I would like to do some housekeeping. As always, keep your microphones on mute throughout the entire session. Please send all of your questions to the chat room. The chat room will be monitored and we will make sure to answer all of your questions in an orderly fashion. This session will be recorded and you will be able to view this program later on demand. Speaking of on-demand recordings, you will be notified soon of this program's availability and all of our recent programs when they are ready to be viewed. We are pleased to announce the following upcoming programs: Disability Employment Awareness Month, October the 27th, American Indian Heritage Month, November the 7th, and Transgender Awareness Week, November the 16th. We look forward to seeing you there. I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker, Larissa Garzon. Larissa Garzon is the Director of North Carolina and Mid-South Operations at Hispanic Federation. Larissa was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia, and has worked for 15 years in immigrant and agricultural workers in the United States and Mexico. She joined Hispanic Federation in March of this year and is happy to lead the organization's efforts to strengthen and support Latino-led and Latino-serving organizations in North Carolina. The next voice you will hear will be the voice of our speaker, Larissa Garzon. I'm going to take the globe and pass it to you in just a moment and get your presentation ready here, Larissa. And I'm going to turn the program over to you in just a moment. Appreciate everyone's patience. Okay, we should be ready to go. Larissa?
All right, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to learn a little bit more about Latinos here in North Carolina and the work of the Hispanic Federation. As Wendy so kindly said, my name is Larissa Garzon and I'm the state director. And today I want to start by sharing with you a little bit more about who we are. So our organization started in 1990, and our mission is to empower and advance the Latino community. We have offices around the country in New York, Hartford, Connecticut, Orlando, Florida, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and here in North Carolina, our office is located in Charlotte. So our goal is to really strengthen Latino-led nonprofits, to promote public policy advocacy, and also we have a lot of community programs that are providing direct services and opportunities to the Latino community. We also have an office in Washington, D.C., which is where we do our national advocacy from. So I mentioned this already, but I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about how we do our work. So one of the main goals of the Hispanic Federation is to strengthen and support Latino-led organizations. Latino-led organizations have historically received less funding than other organizations. They're younger than other organizations. They're very underfunded for the most part and have high demand from the community. And so because of these challenges, one of the things that we do is that we support these organizations, and we try to strengthen them so that they can help the community for a long time and that they are sustainable. We do that by providing our partners with grants. We do that by providing them with training, and we do that through mentorship. So a lot of the trainings that we do have to do with like nonprofit professionals, the skills that nonprofit professionals need to do their job right, but we also help them implement internal systems and do things like communications, board recruitment, things like that. These trainings are usually free, and they happen very often. They're open to anybody. And we also have programs that go more in depth with our members and provide long-term mentorship. As I mentioned before, we also do advocacy, which is focused on advancing the interests and aspirations of Latinos and the Latino-led organizations that I've already mentioned. We participate in coalitions, we do policy research, we engage in public education campaigns, we do advocacy at the local, state, and national level, and we do a lot of civic engagement work, for example, through voter mobilization. Our community programs are done either directly through the Federation or in partnership with the nonprofits that we support. We have programs in 6 different areas. So these areas are education, immigration, healthcare, economic development, civic engagement, and the environment. We'll go through those a little bit more in depth in a few minutes. So even though we only have offices here in the east part of the country, we work with organizations throughout the United States, in 41 states, in Puerto Rico and DC. And we are opening an office in Chicago very soon. And I think after that, we'll be opening an office in Los Angeles, California. But you can see here some of the, the states where we currently work. Our North Carolina office opened in 2019, just a few months before the federal government declared a nationwide emergency because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we acknowledge that since then, Latinos, immigrants, and people of color have continued to see a widening of health and economic inequities that this pandemic has exposed and deepened. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Latinos here in North Carolina. Just a few numbers so that you can get a better idea of who we are and what our role and our contributions are here in the state of North Carolina. So there's over 1 million Latinos in this state. Between 2010 and 2020, the Latino or Hispanic population grew by nearly 320,000 new residents. This is the largest numeric increase of any racial ethnic group in the state. Also in North Carolina, the population grew by 40% over the decade, faster than the growth of the Latino population nationwide, which was only 23%. The places with the highest concentration of Latinos are the Triangle, which has 194,000, and Mecklenburg County, which is 170,000. So we are seeing, what we expect, that the urban areas would have a higher number of Latinos. But there's Latinos everywhere throughout the state of North Carolina. Latinos are 10.7% of North Carolina's population. And even though this is what I was talking about is really interesting, though the number of Latinos in rural areas is smaller, many of the rural counties have seen faster growth in the Latino population over the last 30 years. So you can see that in some less populated rural counties like Duplin County, for example, 22% of the residents are Hispanic or Latinos. In Sampson County, that's 21%. And in Lee County, that's 21%. So it's a high proportion of the population. And of course, this is due to the fact that there's a lot of jobs, there's a lot of pool forces, there's a lot of agriculture, both for field workers, meat processing workers, um, and other agricultural operations that tend to employ this population. And so, of course, it's not a surprise. But what might be surprising to a lot of people is that the majority of the growth of Latinos here in North Carolina comes from births of current residents and not from people migrating from other countries. So we see that North Carolina has a big uh, a percentage of our population being young people, and I see that that's going to be reflected in a few years. We're really going to see that as they grow up. They're going to be American citizens, of course, who will be able to, you know, having been born here, they can vote, they can go to school, and they don't have the same obstacles as some of the other folks that may be here with or without papers. So if you look at the Latino population, most of the Latino population that are here from another country, that were born in another country, most of them were born in Mexico. So 54% of the Latino population that was born in another country, North Carolina, was born in Mexico, followed by Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, which are all in Central America. And among all of North Carolina Hispanic or Latino residents, including those born in the US, 54% identify as Mexican, 11% as Puerto Rican, and 19% as Central Americans, primarily Salvadorian, Honduran, and Guatemalan. So we have a growing and diverse population of Latinos here in the state of North Carolina. So in terms of the Hispanic Federation and where we work, I've mentioned that we started here in 2019 and that our offices are here in Mecklenburg County in the city of Charlotte. But I wanted you to have a visual also of like the fact that we have partners all around the state, and this needs to be updated. But this is just, you know, something for you to think about, that there's Latinos everywhere in the state. So let's talk about education. So Latinos face a lot of challenges when trying to obtain an education. We see that a lot of the folks that migrate here and that maybe live in the rural communities don't have a lot of formal education. They may have completed their formal studies only till third or fourth grade. Some people are semi-illiterate, some people are illiterate. But I think the one thing that we all seem to hear about the most, which is a big challenge right now, considering the stats that I just gave you, is that for young people who are Latino, we have some of the highest dropout rates for high school and also for college. A lot of our families, being from like a first generation immigrant, when you're young, like me, when I was 17 years old and I moved to the United States, my parents didn't really have any knowledge on how the educational system worked in the United States and all the different things that I needed to do to prepare to be able to go to college. So we have a couple of programs that address these issues. We have one called Pathways to Academic Excellence, which is a seminar series for Latino parents to actively support their children's education. And we do that with college prep activities, but also some early childhood activities as well. And then we have Crear Futuros, which is a mentorship program for college students. It's created to address the fact that Latinos face persistent systemic barriers that prevent them from earning a college degree. So what we do is that we partner with public colleges and universities to implement student retention and achievement models that increase the percentage of Latino students graduating from college. This is a program that we want to bring here to North Carolina. We've been talking to a few colleges and universities, and like I mentioned before, it's really neat because we basically train Latino students to become mentors to other Latino students, and help them feel part of the community, help them navigate all the different systems that they need to navigate, help them prepare for a job after college, that kind of stuff. So we want to see young people that are successful. Of course, a lot of our, when you think about Latinos and higher education, another issue that is very important in the state of North Carolina is the issue of how do undocumented or DACA-mented youth go to college. So we don't have an in-state tuition for undocumented students, which prevents them many times from completing their studies because it's expensive. For many people, for example, if you live in rural Eastern North Carolina, it will be hard for you to be able to afford, if you come from a low-income family, to afford, the transportation or the housing in where these institutions are located. And it's all exacerbated due to documentation. But also, I think that we need to, the Hispanic Federation supports an in-state tuition bills for undocumented students here in the state of North Carolina. So one thing that I'd like to mention is that regarding Crear Futuros, is that Crear Futuros, even though we want to work with the Latino community, a lot of the people that benefit from Crear Futuros come from different backgrounds. We really have these programs to serve the overall community when they need it. So we have people from all over, different backgrounds. All right, so immigration is something that I talked a little bit about just now when I was talking about education. And as you all know, a high percentage of the undocumented community here in the United States identify as Latinos and come from Latino countries. So we do support and we do advocacy for bills that will help integrate this community into our country and provide them with a status. But of course, we haven't had that. We haven't had any bills that have been very significant for a while. So what we are doing to help in terms of immigration is through an initiative called Camino de Esperanza. Camino de Esperanza supports direct legal representation of the most vulnerable immigrants across the country. We realize that many immigrants rely on legal counsel to navigate their immigration cases and apply for some relief, but that legal representation is chronically underfunded and under-resourced. It's very hard sometimes for an undocumented person or an immigrant who's looking for legal counsel to find something affordable in their own language, etc. So we know that we can't help everybody who needs legal representation, so we have an emphasis on individuals that are in removal proceedings or that have an asylum case or a special immigrant juvenile status visa. We are basically working with 11 organizations around the country to provide immigration support to over 1,500 individuals. And here in North Carolina, these are our two partners, Carolina Migrant Network and the Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy. They're both located here in Charlotte, and that's because we have an immigration court, and so it makes sense that they can support in this way the most vulnerable immigrants in our state. In terms of health, um, in North Carolina, Hispanic Federation has focused on supporting our partners on the ground so that they can provide pandemic and vaccine education, conduct outreach, host vaccination events, and provide financial support for the most vulnerable. So we have regranted over $1 million to Latino led and serving organizations here. And we have conducted health online classes, organized health fairs, and done a lot of educational efforts to make sure that families have the information that they need, but that they can also obtain some health services for free. And so here I can share that I joined the Hispanic Federation team in March of this year. But before I worked here, I was the executive director for an organization in Eastern North Carolina. And when the pandemic hit, it was very hard because, as you all know, there was a lot of, nobody knew what was going to happen. A lot of the growers didn't plant. So planting season starts in March in Eastern North Carolina, and it goes like all the way to like, I don't know, April. But a lot of the growers didn't plant as usual because there was a lot of uncertainty about what would happen. So that means that a lot of people didn't have work. A lot of meat processing workers were very scared to go to work because everything was very new. And we had to close our offices, like so many people, in one of the most vulnerable times for our community. And so we had to adapt. How can we do things differently, right? You saw a lot of organizations doing that. The funders that first approached me at that time were from the Hispanic Federation. So basically, shortly after our office had to close, I was approached by the former state director. And thanks to this super quick action, that the Hispanic Federation took, we were able to immediately start providing food relief, immediately start providing school supplies, education, and information about the pandemic to the community. So this is a pattern with the Hispanic Federation. We are very good at reacting to disasters, to reacting to emergencies. And that's one of the advantages, I think, of the organizations that we work with, is that whatever type of crisis is happening, the Hispanic Federation is there to support them and make sure that they can help the community. At the time, I can tell you that other foundations, or we're not a foundation, but foundations that we work with, were kind of like trying to figure out what to do. Churches had not figured out how to help. And it was very nice to get this immediate support from the Hispanic Federation. All right, so another area of work that we have is economic development. And most of the work that we do in this area here, or that we have done in this area here in North Carolina, has to do with digital skills. So Latinos don't have the same level of digital skills as the rest of the population. And that prevents them from reaching better jobs, obtaining better jobs, but also to obtain, benefits and services from agencies, from the government. Sometimes it prevents them from communicating with other people, from making appointments, from all of that. So because of that, we have a Latino Digital Accelerator program. The way that this works is that we partner with some of the nonprofits on the ground, and we help them put together a computer lab. and we provide them with a curriculum so that they can help people gain basic, intermediate, and advanced computer skills. So there's programs that are helping people with basic computer skills, like how to turn on your computer, how to use the mouse, how to navigate the internet, that kind of thing. Then we have programs that are for the intermediate, so anything that you can think with, like Word, Excel, how to do your resume, that kind of thing. But we also have programs for advanced skills. Thankfully, we have a partnership with Google. So one of the things that we are able to provide is the digital workforce program, where people can get one or more. We offer 4 certificates through Google. So, for example, one of them is in program management, data analytics is another one, IT is another one, and the last one is design. And anybody that does this program through the Hispanic Federation can complete the program for free. It's 100% free. It's like a scholarship. And these are 6-month programs where the students commit to doing 10 hours a week of studies. And once they graduate, if they complete the certification and everything goes well, they can get a job in technology. So this is great for people that are looking for a career change. This is great for students who feel like they can't afford or they don't want to go to college, or maybe, so many reasons why people maybe they want to have like a job in technology, like a career in technology. And so we provide them with this opportunity. The great thing is that Google has 1,200,000 jobs available worldwide, and the starting salary is $50,000. And so for somebody who's looking for an opportunity, this is a great opportunity for them to change their lives, to go from maybe like a low paid job to something a little bit better, because the other thing is you can do more than one certificate. And we have seen that this has really made a big impact in our community. In some of our sites, the waiting list is long because people are really trying to be involved. And we also have a way to offer it directly when our partners don't have room in their program. So it has been great. And like I mentioned before, with all of our programs, yes, our focus is the Latino community, but we also provide these services to anybody who will contact us, who wants to get the service and who wants to go through the program. That's another great thing that we're working on. Here in North Carolina, we have 2 computer labs, one with the Latin American Coalition in Charlotte and another one with El Centro Hispano in Raleigh or in Durham. I can't remember which one of the 2. Then we just got word a couple of days ago that we're going to be, we got funding to start a 3rd lab here in North Carolina in the eastern part of the state. So we're very excited about that as well. All right, 2 other economic development initiatives have to do with financial literacy, which is very much needed in our community. We provide classes for free, and we also have a hunger relief program. So we provide groceries for low-income families. We try to do that at places that they frequent. So we'll go to, now that we have Hispanic Heritage Month, we've done food distributions at the festivals, at the celebrations, just where people can go and maybe get a little bit of relief. Also like vaccination events and things like that. So here's a little bit of a map regarding the digital skilling centers or the computer labs that I was talking about. We have 42 programs in 19 states, DC and Puerto Rico. So you can see there where our labs are located. And yep, the 2 that we have in North Carolina, I didn't know if it's Durham or Raleigh, but here it is. It's in Durham, with El Centro Hispano. And I think Code the Dream is going to be, which is also located in Durham, is going to be a partner, but I'm not sure if they're going to be working with us with a computer lab or if it's going to be just through the Google certification program. So I owe you that little bit of information. For those of you who know Code the Dream, they do great work. They're another nonprofit located in Durham. Another program or area of work that we have is civic engagement. And so through civic engagement, we really try to raise the voices of Latinos, so that they can be part of the conversation whenever we're talking about any issue that affects their lives. As you saw before from the slides that I shared regarding the population, the Latino community is growing. The number of young people, of children, is growing. And so we need to make sure that they're engaged with their, the civic process. And there's a really high rate of people that don't even register, and an even lower amount of people that make it to the polls, even of those who are registered. So we take this program very seriously. What we do is we try to do campaigns to register people to vote. Right now we have a campaign called La Voz de Mi Gente, in which we're working with 4 or 5 nonprofit organizations to try to register voters. We're working with businesses, Compare Foods, Latin American Chamber of Commerce in Charlotte, some local restaurants. We're all working together to make sure that we register as many people to vote. We are also providing education to the voters regarding how the system works, why it's important to vote. For example, right now, a lot of people don't know what their representatives do. So we provide them information about that, or we tell them when the deadlines are to vote and things like that. Very soon, we're going to be starting our campaign to mobilize voters to the polls. So to make sure that people actually make it to the polls, we're going to be doing, get on the bus type of efforts, party at the polls. We're partnering with some restaurants to have mariachis some days so that people feel very festive and they can actually make it to vote. And another thing that we have done consistently since 2019 here is talk to people about redistricting and how they could get involved with that conversation as well, because that is something that affects all of us. And then the last area of work that I wanted to mention is regarding the environment. We are very involved with things that have to do, that impact Latinos, like natural disasters and sustainable agriculture. Right now, a lot of, our staff is working in Puerto Rico because of all the things that are happening there. The Orlando team is working really hard right now to help the people in Florida that are going to be affected by, the hurricane that is currently going through Florida. And here we are trying to find ways to advocate for Latinos that are affected by natural disasters. The last big hurricane that we had was Florence, and there are people that are still trying to recover, not just in the Latino community, but definitely Latinos face increasing challenges. And we want to be able to work with the government to address these and to make sure that our community is better prepared for the next time. So that is what I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation, and I would like to open the floor for questions. I'm not sure how the technology works, but thank you all for listening, and I hope that you can get involved. I guess one of the things that I would like to emphasize is that not only can you help the Hispanic Federation and support the Hispanic Federation by making a donation or becoming a volunteer, but continue to educate yourself about Latino issues. Hispanic Heritage Month is historically been a time when we celebrate our culture, but sometimes we forget that it's also a time to raise awareness about all of the issues that are being faced by Latinos, um, which are, increasing as a population, as I mentioned. And I would invite you to locate the Latino organization closest to you and find out how you can support them, what events they have, how can you volunteer. Many of them have very interesting things like Zumba classes or classes where the community learns how to speak English, and then English speakers that are interested can practice their Spanish skills and things like that. And so there are many ways for you to get involved. And so with that, I'm going to close and I'm going to pass the mic to Gina. And thank you so much. Wendy, I'm not sure. I called you Jeannie. I'm sorry. Wendy, I'm not sure how we can see the questions or.
It's okay. No problem at all. We are going to open the floor for any questions that anyone has. I'm checking out the chat here to see if we have any questions. And Gina, feel free to jump in if you have any questions as well. And while we're waiting for some questions, I know you've gone over several issues that you were discussing, but you said some things at the end about issues that are facing Latinos right now. What are the some of the main issues right now that you're encountering within your community, within Hispanic Federation? What issues are you addressing mainly?
So the programs that I just spoke about really respond to the main issues that we are seeing. Lack of access to education, really a slow recovery after natural disasters, um, the lack of legal representation, lack of participation and information about how to engage with politics, poverty wages that are that prevent people from really being able to access the services and the things that they need to live. So there are lots of issues. I think all of our programs really try to address those issues. I'm not sure if you had like something in mind.
I have a question, if it's okay, Wendy. You shared some really great information. And so let me say right now, what you've shared that HF does is very impressive. Can you speak a little bit about the disproportionate health and economic impact from COVID-19? I know you touched on it, but a little bit more about that impact on the Latino community. And as is the case with the Black community, I know many Latinos are overrepresented in those lower level occupations or employed in industries or job categories that either make them essential workers and therefore put them at risk as far as their health, or that put them at great risk of losing their job during a shutdown. We saw that in the Black community, and I'm sure it's the same. What can be or is being done to help more Latinos move into better jobs? And I know you actually gave some information on that, but to help them move into better jobs with greater growth potential and opportunities for not only financial gain and other benefits, but also to minimize those health risks and disparate health outcomes. I know, what did I write? Your pathways to academic excellence and career futuros moves in that direction to get them that education. But is there anything else that's going on either in HF that you've done in the past that's been successful, or in other organizations that you're affiliated with? And that's a long rambling question, so I hope it made sense.
It made sense. Thank you so much for your question. Yes, everything you mentioned about Latinos being disproportionately affected by the pandemic, being essential workers, having to go to work, the fact that many people in rural areas specifically live in substandard housing, don't have insurance, all of those issues were magnified by the pandemic. And so I'll start there because in my previous job, I was working mainly with agricultural workers by saying that agricultural workers, um, there's no insurance for workers, right? Like most growers have insurance for their crops. If there's a disaster or if there's a pandemic or something like that, there's insurance for crops, but workers don't have job stability in the sense that, like, if the crops get messed up by a storm, that's it. The workers will lose their job. And so we need to find a way that we can support these workers who are usually making poverty wages and they can't save for an emergency. We need to find a way as a community to support these workers and to provide them with the working conditions that are going to allow them to recover from emergencies with dignity and in a quick way, like accessing the same services and opportunities that everybody else has. In terms of the conditions for work, I think that the Department of Labor does a fantastic job, and I think that they really care about workers here in North Carolina. I would like to see them receive more funding so that they can have more inspectors, so that they can provide more support to workers. That's the kind of thing that they need, because if workers know their rights, they can defend their rights, they can see DOL as a friend that will provide them with the support they need when their wages are being stolen, when their rights are being abused. I think that would make a big difference. It definitely would have made people more prepared for what happened during the pandemic. And then long term, I think education, of course, is key, but I think also improving the working conditions for industries that sometimes we refer as, jobs for unskilled people, but that actually in reality require a lot of skill and that are hard jobs. And that, how can we try to make conditions a little bit better so that these jobs have a better pay, that they have benefits, and that they they are not the jobs that nobody wants. Like I sometimes when I talk about this, I say, when you were a kid, did you ever dream about being a farm worker? Not a farmer, but was that like a job that you wanted to be when you grew up? Or if you have kids, do you want them to grow up to be farm workers? And there's a reason why we usually say no. And that's because the working conditions and the pay are not great. And so it's a big question, because then how do we support farmers so that they can also be competitive and provide better jobs? And how can we change laws that excluded farm workers and domestic workers from labor rights in the 30s? So there's no easy answer, but I think just initiatives for more education, for improving working conditions, for improving housing conditions are going to make an immediate impact. And then we need to focus on the of how we can change the systemic things in a way that everybody wins. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you. And Wendy, interrupt if you get questions, because you know me. I'm guessing that, Larissa, that the unemployment rate is still above its pre-pandemic level for that population. And if that, I mean, I'm guessing that's the case because it seems to be the case with other demographics. And how much does discrimination, like gender and ethnic discrimination, play into that?
I don't really have any stats around that, to be honest with you, but I think that a lot of Latino workers do feel discrimination, or they would report that they feel discrimination. I think that this is most likely the case for first generation immigrants, um, who tend to have a stronger accent. They may have a different education from the rest of the population. Um, you know, it's still the case for everybody. I would say more for them, me included. I am a first generation immigrant, and I have perceived that in the past. Um, but I would say that I will also say that the Latino community is very resilient, and most people in this, in this population, I would say, even if they perceive that, they kind of like keep going forward. Um, it's a problem, but I don't think that when Latinos think about jobs is the main problem. I think that they're looking for access to higher paying jobs, jobs that allow them to grow professionally, and yeah, jobs that will give them opportunity at the same level as other people as well.
Thank you. Um, well, we're state workers. This is just, throwing this out there. What would you advise us to do to help ensure economic equity and minimize further harm? How can we help you? I know you have your website information that Wendy's going to share with everyone, but what can we do?
Thank you for that question. So, educating yourself about the issues faced by Latinos is one of the most important things. As I mentioned before, find out which is the closest Latino led organization in your community, because that is the best way, getting to know people. If you are not of Latino descent and you want to learn more about this population, contact the organization in your neighborhood, in your city, in your town that is working with Latinos, and try to attend some of their events. There are organizations in Wilmington, in the Triad, in the Triangle, all over the state. There are people trying to make a difference to improve the living conditions for Latinos, and you can get involved in ways that are fun. Usually, people have events, or they have English classes, or they have something else that will allow you to have that one on one contact. And that's the best way to get to know the people, right? For example, in my previous job, we offered ESL classes, and we had a woman who liked to cook, and she would make meals. She would make dinner for everybody, like all of the students, so that they didn't have to worry about cooking for their families, especially the women, and they could attend class. And so it was like such a simple gesture that allowed her to sit down, get to know people, get to know about their cultures, and also provide an opportunity for women to attend classes so that they didn't have to worry about staying home to cook, that they didn't have to miss class, or a farm worker who was very hungry after work, he could come and eat dinner and then do the class. So there's little things, creative things like that that you can do. You can volunteer. There's still a lot of food distributions taking place, vaccination events taking place. You can definitely attend those. And I guess obviously giving a financial donation, because as I mentioned in the very beginning, Latino nonprofits are the most underfunded nonprofits in the country. And so any little bit that you can provide these organizations with will help out. There's really good books as well, that you can read. I don't really have like a list right now, but I can put one together that you can share with everybody who's listening.
Great.
And I think documentaries are also a really good way to learn more.
I'm here for the one with the free meal. That is really very helpful. Wendy, do you have any questions? Because I could ask two more that just popped in, if you don't.
I don't have any questions at this point, But I did want to say that I did send the website for Hispanic Federation out to everyone, and I will also share any additional resources once the on-demand link is posted. So you will get notification of information about Hispanic Federation and any other resources at that time.
And I
Okay,
just got
thanks.
I don't know if y'all can see it, but there is a question in the chat for the Q&A.
Good.
It says, is it true that the population of Hispanics fluctuates in North Carolina based on the economic or jobs during a year? Yes, this is true. We have a lot of agriculture. You know, agriculture is one of the main industries here in North Carolina. So between the months, so I mentioned like the harvest starts in March, but between mainly the months of like May to October, we have hundreds of thousands of workers that come here to North Carolina to tend the fields and harvest the crops. That usually, they usually come either from other states like Florida and Georgia, for example, but primarily they come from Mexico. So they come here with a special work visa for agriculture that allows them to work for 1 or more months. And there's hundreds of thousands of them here in North Carolina. For a really long time, North Carolina was #1 in the number of farm workers that came from Mexico or from other countries, but mainly from Mexico, to the United States during the season. Now we are #5. And an interesting thing is that, you know, the uncertainty that I was talking about with COVID, a lot of the reason why people were scared is because they didn't know, a lot of growers, farmers didn't know if they were, the workers that they rely on coming from Mexico were going to be able to come in the country. And there's so many thousands and thousands of workers that come here. The Department of Health did a really good job trying to get these workers vaccinated as they arrived to North Carolina. We'll see how things develop in future years, because I think there's people who are advocating to increase the number of visas so that agricultural workers can take jobs that are year-round jobs. There are other people that are advocating for a pathway to citizenship for these workers. There's nothing concrete really, but yes, it's such a good question, because just in that one industry, you get thousands of people that come and go every year. I hope that helped, Brian.
Time for one more question. Wendy? Or do you have some closing remarks you have to make?
I have a final question. You were talking about the computer labs. Right now you have 2 going on 3. Are those labs also sponsored by Google, or who's your partner for your labs?
That's a really good question. So the way that we get our funding to do our programs is that we partner with corporations, or we apply to big grants that are that the small nonprofits would never be able to apply to, because they either don't have the capacity, or because the grants go for a large amount that they can't manage. So we got grants from Spectrum to build the 2 partnerships, the two computer labs that we currently have. And for the 3rd lab, I honestly can't remember if it was also Spectrum or not, but these are grants that we apply for, and then we're able to like re-grant and pass to our communities and our partners on the ground.
Thank you, and I wish you continued success with your labs, because those types of programs will continue to get more people acclimated with the computer and technology, and hopefully take them on to, like you were saying, different jobs that they could attain in the future, and also just be able to communicate on a regular basis with people that they're not normally able to communicate with. But I don't have any other questions unless there are any other questions coming up in the chat.
I
And
don't see any
really,
other questions.
I didn't either. But
Yeah.
your information, it was very informative. So that's probably why we're not getting a lot of questions, because you basically answered a lot of the questions as you were going for me. But I would like to, at this time, just congratulate you, number one, for coming to Hispanic Federation and continuing to do the goals and objectives of Hispanic Federation and serving in that role. But I would just like to encourage everyone to check out the Hispanic Federation and look at the different programs that are out there. And also, again, we are in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month. Continue to go to the different programs that you're seeing in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, and take the time to get to know someone and find out more about Hispanic culture and Latino culture. And on behalf of the state of North Carolina and the Office of State Human Resources, I would like to again, Larissa, thank you for participating in our program today. And we are going to continue celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month throughout the rest of September and through October. So again, thank you for coming to speak to us today. And this will conclude our program, and look to hear from us in the future about our upcoming programming. But we will see you again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.